Hey, what is up, everybody? This is Stevie Breach coming to you here today. I figured, we're coming up on the weekend of SummerSlam 2018. Old school fans, SummerSlam. This is going to be a good one. I can honestly tell you that, when matches were first starting to come together, I was really getting excited about this pay-per-view. Now, here we are, the weekend of. I can tell you a few matches off the top of my head that are going to happen at the pay-per-view. AJ Styles versus Samoa Joe, Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar, Braun Strowman versus Kevin Owens. I know that there's the three-way for the SmackDown Women's Championship. And off the top of my head, that's pretty much all I can do. I mean, if I really put the pieces together, I think the B team has a match against the Revival for the tag titles. The Bludgeon Brothers are the tag title holders on SmackDown. They're having a match against the New Day. And I really gotta think, Miz versus Daniel Bryan. I just made a video about that one. That one's gonna be up after this. And that's about it. I mean, I'm gonna sit down on Sunday. I know that I've complained about this a few times, but since this is the opening of the full show preview, SummerSlam's gonna be too damn long. That I want to sit down. I want to watch the start of the show. You get in the feel by sort of watching. You're not really paying attention to what's going on, but you're seeing the trailers for the matches sort of get you a little bit built up. But you have the I don't know, some guy just flipped me off as I drove by. I got no clue. But you watch the pre-show, and then SummerSlam's like 5 or 6 hours long, I think, and at least you got time to do some stuff. You're not really paying attention during every match, but still, there's other things in the world that you could be doing. So it kind of sucks. But maybe that's why some people like watching it later, so they can fast forward through some matches and just see the stuff they want to see. But if you want to talk about just the highlights, obviously you've got to start with the Universal Championship match. I think that somebody is walking out as a new champion. The easiest thing that almost most people are talking about is that Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns are going to have their match. One thing leads to another. The thing that makes the most sense in my head is that Roman beats Brock, but then Braun cashes in on Roman. I know that that's the most easiest thing to basically put together. We've seen this 1,000 times. We've seen it at SummerSlam countless times, where somebody beats the champion and then obviously they get cashed in on, and then that is the new angle to roll with for I guess you can say those after summer months. For it used to be Night of Champions and other pay-per-views that go September, October, November. I don't think that is exactly what WWE is going to do. Maybe they just roll with Roman beating him, and Roman's the champ, and we'll see what happens and where we go from there. Maybe they go with Brock just beats him, and WWE is the ones that's really behind all the UFC rumors. They're feeding the stories out. Maybe they helped get Brock on that pay-per-view to set up the Cormier fight. I don't think that's really what is going on, but maybe that's what it is. Maybe Brock just keeps the championship, hoping that Brock is going to turn around and win a UFC belt pretty soon by beating Cormier. And then all of a sudden, WWE is able to claim that they had the UFC champion under contract. And maybe they're actually able to just sort of determine when he's going to fight for UFC. And maybe they can build up a few fights with Brock to hype up a UFC pay-per-view. At the same time, it's making them look good, maybe bringing people over from UFC to watch Brock Lesnar wrestle in WWE. To me, that's a little bit far-fetched, but there is a few different situations that they could go through. Honestly, when you think about what's going down with the briefcase, Braun Strowman, who holds the briefcase after winning the Money in the Bank match, he has a match against Kevin Owens. And as a wrestling fan, I'm a little bit mixed up on what the stipulation is for the match. I think it is at first I thought that if Owens beat Strowman wasn't able to use... I can honestly say that I'm mixed up as to what the stipulation is for the match. At first I thought that it was if Owens beats Strowman, basically he wasn't able to use the briefcase the night of SummerSlam. Now I'm thinking that if Owens beats Strowman, Owens just gets the briefcase and he has the chance to cash in at any time because he has control of the contract. So this one, to me, honestly, could go either way on what they're doing. It just doesn't really make sense to me. You know, when I think of the other matches on there, you know, I hope the Bludgeon Brothers lose the championship. They've held the titles longer than I thought they were going to. But at the same time, I think that Team Hell No might have been the guys that were supposed to beat them. But, you know, Kane had the injury, and it didn't make sense to have, you know, Daniel Bryan beat the Bludgeon Brothers 2-on-1. Even with Kane limping to the ring in his body cast. The other one, the B team, they keep winning. They're sort of like the surprise. They have the match against the Revival. The Revival, I don't think they've been the tag champs in WWE on Monday Night Raw. But they're a team that honestly, since coming from NXT, they have not lived up to the hype of, you know, what was going on in NXT, and they have really, really good matches. And I think it just might be that maybe because of the injury that happened to him early on, maybe just the fans haven't got used to these guys being ass kickers. Not everybody watches NXT, and these guys are one of the best tag teams that I've seen since Arn and Tully. And the more you watch on those guys from back in the day, the better you think that those guys are. What else is going on at SummerSlam? Yeah, I'm kicking my seat back. I think it's going to be a good show. I'm not really that excited about it. AJ versus Joe. Yeah, that does seem like it's a dream match happening in WWE, happening on the second largest stage of the year for WWE. But what did we really think about Nakamura going against AJ Styles at WrestleMania? We thought that we were going to get the best match we've ever seen. You know, the Tokyo Dome, they got a six-star match at Wrestle Kingdom a few years ago between Omega and I just fucked his name up, and I'm gonna live that down. But Okada and Omega. They had that match that was, you know, one of the best matches that, you know, Dave Meltzer said he ever saw. He gave it 6 stars. We thought that you know, the match at WrestleMania between Nakamura and Styles was going to be 7 stars. We thought that they were going to top the Wrestle Kingdom match. They were going to push the envelope, and they were going to give us the best wrestling match of the night. And instead, nothing really happened. So I think that Styles is going to want to lift this game up. But at the same time, I don't really have the highest hopes for what's going to be going down. Intercontinental Champion, off the top of my head, I can't even think of who the Intercontinental... Oh, it's the match between Ziggler and Rollins, which should be fun. Ambrose returned. And then, of course, Drew McIntyre is going to be in there. Might as well call this match a tag match. I don't know. If I was WWE, he's been having some really good matches, but I don't want to like take the easy way out and just basically say that I think it's going to be like a disqualification or something where Ambrose costs Rollins the win, and then you have Ambrose having matches against Rollins. But I think that Rollins has been having matches that were so good that he deserves not to be going after the Intercontinental Championship and pushing up higher on the card. And maybe a singles feud against Ambrose is what they're going to do. Obviously, you go back to late last year, the push from TLC all the way into... whatever the December pay-per-view was obviously supposed to be the Shield. The Shield was probably supposed to run longer than Ambrose's injury, and who knows how that was really supposed to end. But, you know, I think that maybe they have stock in putting them together. So maybe those 3 guys team up and go after Strowman. If Strowman was to win the championship, maybe they team up and go 3-on-1 against Brock at a pay-per-view. It could be a mixture of a whole lot of anything. So we'll have to see what goes down with that. It's going to be a good pay-per-view. I'm looking forward to it. So We'll see what you guys think. Peace out, everybody. Hey, what is up, everybody? This is Stevie Breach coming to you here poolside. We're sitting here chilling. I'm watching some Dan Le Batard. I noticed that, honestly, I made videos on just about everything for WWE SummerSlam 2018. I'm really getting excited and looking forward to this card. But yesterday on 205 Live, they named the Cruiserweight Championship match, which is going to be Cedric Alexander, the champion, going up against Drew Gulak. Drew Gulak was one of my favorite guys in 205 Live, coming out there with this whole PowerPoint presentations, always sort of giving his takes on why he was the best guy that was on 205 Live, why he should be going after the championship. But honestly, I haven't watched 205 Live in a long time. And for somebody who mostly was following 205 Live, just basically following what was going on WWE's Twitter feed, you know, right now, when SmackDown ends over on USA, they start showing the new Miz show, Miz and Miz, with him and Maurice, and it's really hard to follow what's going on 205 Live, because it really looks like WWE is making the Miz reality show more of a forefront thing to talk about than it is, you know, following what's going on 205 Live. I'm wondering if 205 Live is even a brand that is worth WWE continuing. Obviously, from its debut, it has not really been anything anybody's been excited to see when going to see SmackDown tapings. Many people leaving early, many people not really paying attention to what's going on, empty arenas. Is this something that maybe WWE needs to look forward to just sort of scrapping and moving into a new direction? I understand you don't have to scrap the whole Cruiserweight division. You could just move them back to Monday Night Raw, where I haven't seen them have a match, honestly, in a really long time, or just place them on the SmackDown, and some of these guys can try to become stars, where they just sort of merge into the main storylines of the show. There's a lot of guys on here that have a lot of talent, and putting them in, you know, weird sort of situations against guys that are bigger than them, having matches on them, could really get these guys over to the point where people really want to follow what's going on. If you think about, you know, what's sort of mainstream coming out of 205 Live, maybe the Lucha House Party, which they just came out with a new shirt, sort of taking off on the In Your House t-shirt design from back in the day. Cedric Alexander's been the champion since Enzo left. I believe he won the championship at WrestleMania. So he's been going on a little bit of a run. But besides for that, really what's going on 205 Live that most people are talking about? You know, Cedric Alexander's the champion. He came out today apologizing for offensive tweets that he posted in the past, because it seems like that's about anything anybody has time for these days. Anybody's having a good day, whether if it's somebody almost throwing a no-hitter in baseball, or pitching in the All-Star game. All of a sudden, you know, people start diving into seeing what I can find on somebody that's out there. So, obviously, you know, this has happened in WWE in the past, like with Apollo Crews. And Apollo Crews had a pretty good run going for him before those tweets surfaced. And then all of a sudden, he's just sort of been stuck in this whole Titus Worldwide ordeal, not really going anywhere. So maybe this is something that's going to make Cedric lose the championship. But if it just comes down to it, who's the better one, picking Cedric to get the win. Hey, what is up, everybody? This is Stevie Breach coming to you here today. I wanted to make one more follow-up video on my SummerSlam 2018 full show preview. There's honestly a few matches that I have not touched on, but the one I think we need to go back on is The Miz versus Daniel Bryan. This honestly is a big match, but I honestly don't think that this match is getting the same amount of fanfare that I thought it was going to get when Daniel Bryan first announced that he was returning to WWE. Maybe, you know, I know that he returned and it was sort of like a fill in the gap for the whole, I can't remember who was supposed to be Shane McMahon's partner that I think got injured, and it just wasn't able to happen, so they brought Daniel Bryan back. I honestly don't remember. If you can comment down below and fill in my memory, I honestly really would appreciate it. But if you can remember back that before Daniel Bryan's return was announced, I can remember that there was a rumor that WWE was planning on bringing Daniel Bryan back for a return at SummerSlam. Maybe Daniel Bryan versus The Miz was the original plan for SummerSlam 2018, and he just wasn't supposed to return for WrestleMania. And maybe that's just the way it happened. Now, off the top of my head, that's what I'm thinking was originally supposed to happen. And then something happened, and Shane needed somebody to tag with, and it ended up Daniel Bryan was the best fit to add to that match. I'm really like stumped here. I really can't remember what that match was supposed to be before Bryan filled in against Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens. But this match is being billed as 8 years in the making. You go back 8 years, yes, The Miz was Daniel Bryan's pro. At that point, The Miz, he was not WWE champion yet, but I believe at the time he was United States champion. I don't think that The Miz won the belt until the next year at Survivor Series. It would be shortly after their feud. But basically, Bryan was brought into NXT. The Miz was his pro. They did not get along. They did not see eye to eye. Bryan would constantly call The Miz out as, being not as good as he was, and The Miz would always sort of use the same lines that Michael Cole was using, that this guy wrestled in bingo parlors, and the independents aren't the same as wrestling in WWE, and everybody knew the truth. I can remember when Daniel Bryan was going to debut on NXT, and people went bananas, and I was like, okay, this is the one person that's coming into WWE that I've never heard of, and if this many people love him, and at that time, is when I was getting on Skype all the time, so I was hearing about how good he was from, Freaking Yaya 88, Destin, I forgot Destin's name, Matt Beast, Undertaker fan for life, 1419, was telling me all this stuff, so I went over to my old school wrestling boards where I used to trade DVDs, and I just posted that I was looking for a Bryan Danielson comp, and somebody sold me one pretty dirt cheap. If I remember right, it was like 8 discs of best of matches, and all these matches were all like 30 to 45 minutes long, and they were slobber knockers. They were great. That was the best way to open my eyes to who Bryan Danielson was, who Daniel Bryan was going to be, and I had a lot of fun watching those. But the one part that I don't get about billing this match is 8 years in the making is it's almost like, WrestleMania 27 when they didn't talk about WrestleMania 17 with the Triple H versus The Undertaker match. This match has already happened. It's happened quite a few times. It's happened at Night of Champions 2010. I think it happened at the next pay-per-view, whatever that was after that. I think Daniel Bryan and Miz had matches on back-to-back pay-per-views in 2010. I'm sure they had matches on Monday Night Raw and or SmackDown since then. So I know that this is the match that, when Daniel Bryan was retired, he was on Talking Smack. He was, the GM. He was getting his buttons pushed by The Miz. The Miz was basically saying that he wanted to quit. He didn't want to be in WWE anymore. He couldn't wrestle anymore because he didn't want to. And The Miz pushed Daniel Bryan so bad that he had to walk away from the Talking Smack set because he was so upset. And we've heard stories of Daniel Bryan getting in arguments with Triple H. We've heard about him, getting in arguments with people backstage, standing up for himself. But to me, honestly, especially from him being involved in reality shows like Total Divas, Total Bellas, seeing him on the Wrestling Road Diaries, it's hard for me to really believe Daniel Bryan getting upset about just about anything. It's almost like he would just go along with the flow of almost, whatever it is. But when you get your buttons pushed on a sensitive topic, basically calling him out that he didn't want to wrestle anymore, that was the breaking point. And I remember making the video. I made the video a ton of times about, hoping that Daniel Bryan was going to return. And I remember my one point of this video that I made at this time was, is Daniel Bryan really going to have his comeback match against The Miz? Is this really the most popular opponent that you could put him against in the biggest match possible? Seeing how, when Daniel Bryan walked away after WrestleMania 30, he was the WWE Champion. You brought him back for WrestleMania 31. He was the Intercontinental Champion when he was forced to walk away. I know that his role was going to be diminished for that return of WrestleMania 31. His plan was to, hold the Intercontinental Championship. He was going to be a SmackDown guy. He was going to sort of have the Intercontinental Champion. So, like, each episode of SmackDown would have a real wrestling match on the real wrestling show. And that's the way a lot of fans actually saw that whole thing panning out. And yeah, he wasn't going to be Intercontinental Champion forever, but he was not going to be that main guy. It's hard to put into words. I think that this is a big match, but at the same time, I don't think this match is as big as they're hyping it up as. It's almost like it's just another match. Maybe if they would have waited and this actually would have been the return, and maybe they could have had a feud where, The Miz was pushing the buttons of Daniel Bryan, and Daniel Bryan, finally, stood up for himself and basically said, maybe the whole thing would have panned out if maybe Daniel Bryan would have beat up The Miz one day on SmackDown. And then, The Miz would have been asking, what kind of repercussions going to be coming for you getting beat up by his GM? You can't be putting in these hazardous work conditions and things like that. And then, boom, out of the blue, Daniel Bryan says, well, how about this? We put this forward. How about you can get your hands on me inside of the ring and you can get your revenge? And basically The Miz accepts the match, thinking that it's never going to happen because he's not medically cleared. And then Daniel Bryan pulls the wool over the Miz's eyes, basically saying that he's been cleared and he's just been waiting for the right time to be able to set this match, because he knew that The Miz would never accept under normal circumstances, knowing that Daniel Bryan would kill him. Maybe that's the way that you would get to it. I will say this. Daniel Bryan's return has been awesome. It was a really feel-good moment to hear him have that speech, and then to see him get beat up on the same show and left laying by Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. That was kind of honestly surprising. To see him get a win at WrestleMania, that honestly felt good. I know that he had matches against Big Cass on back-to-back pay-per-views before Big Cass was released. Other than that, he had a match against AJ Styles for the championship on SmackDown. But honestly, besides that, I really can't tell you anything else that Daniel Bryan has really done. Maybe it strikes on me because I haven't been the best SmackDown viewer, but it's not like SmackDown's really throwing these matches up to really care. I know that, Daniel Bryan's probably in a spot where Vince and WWE is kind of scared to put the whole green light behind him. Yes, people want to chant yes, 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 so let's have him go out there and wrestle in matches, but let's not book ourselves in a corner where we put this guy in a championship match, or we put a championship on him, and then all of a sudden he's not able to wrestle because he's injured, and we're screwed again. This has already happened to us twice. We can't have this 3 times. So maybe they're not wanting to put him into a main event where you have to, basically shuffle a whole pay-per-view, or you have to basically blow everything up to try and fix it. So I think that this is a big match. I really hope Daniel Bryan's going to get the win. I know that in most feuds in WWE, they go 3 months. And most times the babyface gets the win in month number 1. So I know they're going to want to try to get the most out of it. For me, I always feel the first match is the biggest match. And I understand after you do one match, you have to do a rematch. After the rematch, you have to have the rubber match. And that's how you sort of figure everything out. But the first match to me always is the biggest. I don't understand the booking of this as calling it the 8 years in the making. I know that the match happened where Daniel Bryan beat The Miz at Night of Champions 2010. I'm pretty sure they had a rematch the next month where Daniel Bryan beat him again. That would be August, September. And then, of course, in November is when The Miz would win the championship. I'm sure that they've had matches along the way on SmackDown and Raw. So it's not like we've been clamoring to have this for 8 years. If you want to say that this is the match that we've been waiting a year since, you know, Daniel Bryan walked off the set of Talking Smack, I guess that makes sense. But 8 years just seems like it's a little bit just making you trying to erase the past. And I know that Daniel Bryan really isn't the same wrestler or even the same character really that we saw back in 2010, but the matches happen. People remember. It's not hard to look up. So it's not like we've been really clamoring for it. If you want to say that this is a feud that's been brewing for 8 years, that makes sense. Let's just go with that. So hopefully at SummerSlam we're going to see Bryan get the win. We'll roll out with that. I'll see you guys down the road. Hey, what is up, everybody? This is Stevie Breach coming to you live from the beach here in Mexico Beach, Florida. We're having a ton of fun. Honestly, I'm looking here at that SummerSlam card, SummerSlam 2018. I know that I made a few videos on this already. We've made one video looking at the entire card. We made one video talking about Roman Reigns for going up against Brock Lesnar. We made another one against the AJ Styles match against Samoa Joe. All really looking like really good matches. But I made a video the other day sort of knocking the WWE Evolution 2018 card, the all-women's pay-per-view that's going to be coming up in October. But one of the matches that I'm looking at on the SummerSlam 2018 show that honestly looks really good is the Becky Lynch match going up against Carmella for the Women's Championship on the SmackDown brand. This is going to be a good match right here. Honestly, when you look at what happened when they split up the Raw and the SmackDown after the 2016 draft, and there's a lot of people pointing at Carmella and Alexa Bliss being two of the biggest surprises to come out of this. Honestly, I thought they really stacked the Monday Night Raw brand. Of course, Monday Night Raw being the A show. They put Sasha Banks over there. They put Charlotte over there. They put Bayley over there. They did put some of the women's stars on SmackDown, but I really thought, even though Nikki Bella was there and she was a former champion, I thought they really split it up to make Becky Lynch the star of SmackDown, and she was going to be the one who finally got to be the women's champion. I don't think she had done it when she was, when they only had the one championship, and you had Charlotte having the record reign, as well as Nikki Bella going on that one hell of a run with the title. Paige had the belt for a while, but I think that might have been before Becky was even on the main roster. But I thought this was going to be Becky's time to shine, and although if you go back to, I believe, No Mercy 2016, she was supposed to get a title shot against Alexa Bliss, and a lot of people thought that's when she was going to win the title, but she ended up getting hurt. They ended up having to move the match back. They gave her one hell of a moment when they actually did SmackDown Live in Scotland, but that title reign didn't last long. I'm hoping here that this is actually going to be Becky Lynch's time to shine, where she's going to be the one to beat Carmella. I know when you have that heeled champion, you sort of have to have some sort of a real dominant win by the babyface, because we've been looking at Carmella having the belt going up against Asuka on the last two pay-per-views, and both of those times I said Asuka's going to go out there and she's going to be the more dominant force there, but Carmella's going to have to come up with some dastardly plan in order to keep her title. You go back, you saw the re-debut of James Ellsworth, and that was really all she wrote on there. But I'm thinking that at SummerSlam, Becky Lynch is going to pull out the win. We're going to see her with that championship, then hopefully it's going to be the time to shine for Becky Lynch on the SmackDown brand. Hey, what is up, everybody? This is Stevie Breach coming to you live from the beach here in Mexico Beach, Florida. We're having a ton of fun. Honestly, I'm looking here at that SummerSlam card, SummerSlam 2018. I know that I made a few videos on this already. We've made one video looking at the entire card. We made one video talking about Roman Reigns for going up against Brock Lesnar. We made another one against the AJ Styles match against Samoa Joe. All really looking like really good matches. But I made a video the other day sort of knocking the WWE Evolution 2018 card, the all-women's pay-per-view that's going to be coming up in October. But one of the matches that I'm looking at on the SummerSlam 2018 show that honestly looks really good is the Becky Lynch match going up against Carmella for the Women's Championship on the SmackDown brand. This is going to be a good match right here. Honestly, when you look at what happened when they split up the Raw and the SmackDown after the 2016 draft, and there's a lot of people pointing at Carmella and Alexa Bliss being two of the biggest surprises to come out of this. Honestly, I thought they really stacked the Monday Night Raw brand. Of course, Monday Night Raw being the A show. They put Sasha Banks over there. They put Charlotte over there. They put Bayley over there. They did put some of the women's stars on SmackDown, but I really thought, even though Nikki Bella was there and she was a former champion, I thought they really split it up to make Becky Lynch the star of SmackDown, and she was going to be the one who finally got to be the women's champion. I don't think she had done it when she was, when they only had the one championship, and you had Charlotte having the record reign, as well as Nikki Bella going on that one hell of a run with the title. Paige had the belt for a while, but I think that might have been before Becky was even on the main roster. But I thought this was going to be Becky's time to shine, and although if you go back to, I believe, No Mercy 2016, she was supposed to get a title shot against Alexa Bliss, and a lot of people thought that's when she was going to win the title, but she ended up getting hurt. They ended up having to move the match back. They gave her one hell of a moment when they actually did SmackDown Live in Scotland, but that title reign didn't last long. I'm hoping here that this is actually going to be Becky Lynch's time to shine, where she's going to be the one to beat Carmella. I know when you have that heeled champion, you sort of have to have some sort of a real dominant win by the babyface, because we've been looking at Carmella having the belt going up against Asuka on the last two pay-per-views, and both of those times I said Asuka's going to go out there and she's going to be the more dominant force there, but Carmella's going to have to come up with some dastardly plan in order to keep her title. You go back, you saw the re-debut of James Ellsworth, and that was really all she wrote on there. But I'm thinking that at SummerSlam, Becky Lynch is going to pull out the win. We're going to see her with that championship. Then hopefully it's going to be the time to shine for Becky Lynch on the SmackDown brand. WWE SummerSlam 2018, we're going to see the Intercontinental Championship put on the line when Seth Rollins tries to get revenge over Dolph Ziggler. Last month at Extreme Rules, we had the Iron Man match to finish out the show. Most people thought that with Rollins and Ziggler giving us a real wrestling match to close out a pay-per-view, that the fans would go crazy, getting to see something that we have not seen in quite some time, having real wrestling action instead of just having a brawling main event. And the fans crapped all over it, whether if it's just not being able to keep their attention for a 30-minute match, but the fans chanted for everything other than under the sun, other than Rollins versus Ziggler. You could tell that Rollins and Ziggler lost their cool inside of the ring, not knowing how to get the fans back into the match. It just seems that at this point, WWE has sort of lost base with its fans on trying to figure out what they want. And here they are trying to make them happy, and it's almost every single move that they make, it's not able to make a difference. Rollins versus Ziggler, if it's put into the middle of a show, or even to be the opening match of a show, I think is going to get people up on their feet. They go out there and they give them a good 12 to 15 minute match. It's going to be able to be that real wrestling match that people can point at and say this is going to be the best match of the night, and this is going to be the match that people are going to be talking about the next night over all the moves that these guys hit. Ziggler, when WWE has faith in, he always sort of gives a performance to back it up. I know that In the past, we've seen performances by Dolph Ziggler where he's gone out and closed out pay-per-views, whether if it's been the TLC, where he had the ladder match against John Cena, or whether if it was the Survivor Series where he helped Team Cena beat the Authority, where he closes out pay-per-views just like he did last month at Extreme Rules. And people think this is going to be the start of the big push of Dolph Ziggler, and within a month it is all forgotten. If you go back to the push of Dolph Ziggler last year, he came in, he beat Baron Corbin for the United States Championship. He gave up the title, basically saying that it was below him. He left for a little bit, returned, basically saying that he wanted to fight for a championship. And that worked for a month or two, but then come WrestleMania, he just was fighting in the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal, just like a lot of the other guys that are in his position, trying to find something that just don't have it. If he's not going to fight for anything other than the World Heavyweight Championship, why is he fighting for the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal? That didn't really make a whole lot of sense, and it sort of killed his push in my mind and a lot of other people's along the way. Rollins is the guy that you can count on to be having one of the best matches on pay-per-views night in and night out. I don't think that SummerSlam is going to be anything other than that. So at this time, I think that Rollins is going to pull out the win, getting the Intercontinental title back, and I think a series of matches with him as well as Ziggler are going to come down the road. I don't think this feud is anywhere close to being done, and where Drew McIntyre fits into all this, we'll have to see. Hey, what is up, everybody? This is Stevie Breach coming to you here as we're counting down until SummerSlam 2018. It looks like we're going to be setting up another Braun Strowman versus Kevin Owens match, and I can honestly tell you that as of right now, I'm kind of done with this whole, Braun Strowman versus Kevin Owens feud. It seems like in my mind, this feud has been played out over, Monday Night Raw for months now. We've seen this matches on pay-per-view, and for it to come down to SummerSlam, it doesn't really seem like it's a much appealing match for me. The one thing that is coming out of this, more than likely, is we're going to see some sort of a stipulation with the Money in the Bank briefcase being put on the line on Monday. Some people said that Kevin Owens picked up the Money in the Bank briefcase for the reason that he did not want Braun Strowman to cash in because Brock Lesnar was in the building. I honestly think that Kevin Owens sort of looked at this as a moment to sort of steal the Money in the Bank briefcase. I know in the past we've seen the Money in the Bank briefcase sort of been stolen. I know that Cody Rhodes stole it from Damian Sandow in the past. I know that Dean Ambrose stole it from Seth Rollins. And I know that there's no real rules that go along with the Money in the Bank briefcase. They sort of make things up on the fly. But I think that in my rule book, I think that Kevin Owens, if any opportunity would come up, would be able to cash in that Money in the Bank briefcase at any time. If I was WWE, if I was in charge of the house shows, I would have Kevin Owens running down to the ring. Well, you can't really do that because Brock Lesnar doesn't work house shows. But in my mind, that would be a perfectly good storyline to be running on these house shows, as Kevin Owens trying to cash in this briefcase, only to be interrupted by Braun Strowman for trying to get revenge and get his case back. But more than likely on house shows, we'll see the Money in the Bank briefcase being put up on the line as a reason to keep people's interest during these. But I don't know if they do a ladder match or just a straight up just pinfall wins the briefcase. We've seen the briefcase be put up on the line in a ladder match between Dolph Ziggler and John Cena at TLC years ago, which ended up being a really good main event for the show that Ziggler actually got the win on. One of those few pay-per-views where Ziggler's actually in the pay-per-view with the win, and everybody goes crazy thinking that this is going to be the start of the push of Dolph Ziggler that we have never seen. I think that, having sort of a stipulation of keeping that briefcase means something when, Brock isn't on the shows. Is going to keep it fun for the next few weeks. So I like this. So we'll see how this one plays out. But in the end, I think Braun wins. Braun cashes in to end up SummerSlam. I think that is going to be the overall story of SummerSlam, is Braun Strowman becoming the champion. Hey, what is up everybody? This is Stevie Breach coming to you here today. We're in another match that's already been named for the SummerSlam Spectacular in 2018 is going to be Ronda Rousey getting her second shot at the WWE Women's Championship. She's going to be going up against Alexa Bliss, and no doubt in her corner is going to be Mickie James. Of course, at Money in the Bank, this feud was kicked off when Alexa Bliss, who had freshly won the Money in the Bank briefcase, ran down during the Ronda Rousey versus Nia Jax match, ending it in a disqualification and then also cashing in and becoming champion herself. This, of course, was the first chance that Ronda Rousey had to go for the WWE Monday Night Raw Women's Championship, and looked at the kickoff of her really singles career in the WWE, paying off on her the big contract, bringing her over from UFC after her career ended. And as you can see, Ronda Rousey did not like the tactics that Alexa Bliss used to put herself over and become the champion at her expense. Basically, after the beatdown on Monday Night Raw, Kurt Angle had to step in as the GM of Monday Night Raw, suspending Ronda Rousey for 30 days. I think that was mostly because of the fact of how many Monday Night Raw dates there were in between Money in the Bank and SummerSlam, to basically keep the what's the word I'm looking for? To just keep the feud fresh, because you can only have Ronda Rousey pummeling Alexa Bliss so many times. We've seen basically WWE use the same tactic with Brock Lesnar, where he would go out and have a big match, and of course there wouldn't be a chance for him to have a rematch because of how expensive he is for a countless amount of time. So they would just sort of suspend him for his actions and then just sort of bring him back in when the time was right in WWE. I know that Ronda Rousey is supposed to be a full-time employee, and she's also been doing Monday Night Raw house dates and things like that. So I hope that we aren't going to continuously see Ronda Rousey get suspended throughout her time in WWE to basically keep her fresh and not have her on TV and find ways to use her, as she is basically a full-time wrestler in the company now. So let's find new ways to sort of keep her fresh and in her mind. But I'm hoping that she's going to be winning the championship from Alexa Bliss at the pay-per-view. I know that this is not a slam dunk. If you go back and you think about Nakamura getting the shot going up against Jinder Mahal at last year's SummerSlam, we all thought that was going to be a lock. And at the end of the show, Nakamura was not holding that championship. And still to this date, Nakamura has not been able to win the WWE Championship. And he's sort of looked at as one of the main guys that they brought in from New Japan Pro Wrestling to sort of bring in a lot of people around the world to see how good this guy is, and they haven't really put him over. Ronda Rousey, I honestly think that she's going to be the champion. I think the match that they're going to be setting up for Evolution, if not Evolution, WrestleMania 35, would be Charlotte Flair versus Ronda Rousey. That definitely is the match that I think the biggest match that they could have for Ronda, and for Ronda to have that championship, or for Charlotte to have the SmackDown title, or find some way to move her over. I think that's the biggest match that WWE could have to spotlight the women's revolution, seeing how they're the two best wrestling women that are in the company. So that's what we have to set us up for. I don't know what to think. I was about to say that Monday Night Raw is the A brand, but with that big Fox deal, a lot of people are saying that SmackDown will now become the A brand. But we've been saying that for years when we talk about them rebranding SmackDown and trying to make it the bigger show. So I don't know how we get to that end point, but Ronda Rousey beating Alexa Bliss for the championship, I think, is the start of it. So let's see what goes down at SummerSlam, but I got my money on Ronda Rousey. Hey, what is up everybody? This is Stevie Breach coming to you here today. Tonight on WWE SmackDown Live, we had the #1 contender finally named for AJ Styles. For AJ to compete, putting up the WWE World Heavyweight Championship at SummerSlam, the second biggest show of the year, that's going to be coming to you live from the Barclays Center. This is a big match for everyone involved, and I think this one is probably the best bet that they could have. WWE ended up paying off on the rumored card that was out there on the internet. You can see it in various places. I made a video about it the other day, just giving my thoughts, and I honestly thought that this was one of the best SummerSlam cards that they've put together in quite a while, seeing how I have not watched SummerSlam the last 2 years. I did not watch SummerSlam 2016 or 2018, but this year, the main match that we're going to be getting from SmackDown Live is going to be AJ Styles putting up the championship against Samoa Joe. I had heard this was going to be the match, but as I was sitting here watching SmackDown Live, there was a match on the show, CM Almas going up against Rusev, where I thought this was kind of a weird situation to put two heels up against each other. I thought that these were the last two matches that AJ Styles had, even though AJ had won both of those matches. They were both pretty good. Would this sort of be a number one contenders match to see who would go to SummerSlam? As the match paid off, there was no number one contender stipulation named. There was no sort of press conference after, and I thought that it was sort of weird. Paige came down to the ring to make her announcement on who AJ Styles' contender was going to be, and from out of nowhere, AJ Styles was jumped by Samoa Joe, and Samoa Joe signed the contract. I'm guessing that's going to put into place AJ Styles versus Samoa Joe. We're going to pay off on all of the history that is TNA, Global Impact Wrestling, whatever that you would like to call it. I'm always going to refer to it as TNA because of the fact that I've been following the product since 2002. The same reason that I still call WWE WWF every once in a while, because it's just burned into the brain that way. If you go back, you think about all those Impact years, Joe and AJ Styles were two of the best homegrown talent that was in that company, even though AJ Styles spent some time in WCW. Samoa Joe went through Ring of Honor before both ended up there, and they honestly really created magic in the bottle. And even though they were wrestling there during what we're going to do is we're going to pay off on the traditions of TNA Impact Wrestling. AJ Styles and Samoa Joe were the guys that honestly built that place. And Samoa Joe was the guy that was in the main event going up against Kurt Angle when TNA reached the highest highs that it ever was at. And as TNA was constantly pushing itself, bringing in more stars that were more familiar to a WWE base, a fan trying to branch out and become an alternative, AJ and Samoa Joe found themselves falling down the card. If you can remember going back into the whole TNA Bound for Glory series, something that I thought that was a really, really good idea was the fact that you were pushing tournament style matches, making every match matter on Impact. Not every single match was very predictable at the same pace, but as they were doing those in the first Bound for Glory series, Samoa Joe scored -4 points to end the tournament. I think that Joe lost every match that he was in, and even lost the match via disqualification, and that is one of the reasons why he did not gain any points and ended up with negative points. AJ Styles, no matter where you put him on the card, he was in tag matches. He was Christian Cage's lackey. At the time he finally left TNA, they started to push him again, but the problem was they didn't want to pay him. But I thought that this was a match that they could have put together for WrestleMania a few years ago in Orlando. I thought that it would have been a very funny thing that WWE normally likes to pull off, like basically pulling a rib, where Impact Wrestling wrestled at Universal Studios in Orlando at the Impact Zone for so long, and now here we are doing AJ Styles versus Samoa Joe one more time on the grandest stage of them all, WrestleMania, with the thousands of fans in attendance, to just make the Impact Zone look like the smallest thing in the world. Honestly, when it comes down to it, I think this is the match that AJ Styles could lose. I know that when I looked at the last pay-per-view against Rusev, there was a little glimmer of, what if in the back of my mind, because of the fact that AJ has held the championship for so long that you just think maybe this is going to be just like Jinder Mahal beating Randy Orton, that, on any given day, anyone in WWE they're there for a reason. Anybody can beat the champion on any one given day, and that's why they have these matches on house shows and on SmackDown and Raw and everything like that. But when it comes down to it, Samoa Joe, even though he really, he's had main event matches sporadically throughout his time in WWE, he's a guy that honestly doesn't lose that much. He's a guy that they've always really kept hot. Somebody that you really know could go out there and handle their business against just about anybody on the card. Joe versus Braun Strowman with some really good matches. I think that Joe's got a really good chance of winning this match. And I honestly think that as of right now, I think Joe might be the favorite to beat AJ Styles, because who wouldn't want to see Joe versus AJ, 3 months in a row on WWE pay-per-view? I think that's going to be a pretty good thing. So I'm really looking forward to SummerSlam 2018. I know it's going to be coming up in a few weeks here on the WWE Network, and as of right now, I got my money on Samoa Joe. Hey, what is up, everybody? This is Steve Breach coming to you here on this Sunday night. We're going to be sitting here talking a little bit about Monday Night Raw. I put a video up the other day talking about the fact that there might be a chance that The Rock might be making an appearance at Monday Night Raw, since it's going to be coming to you live from Miami. They just had the release of the Elias album. And a lot of people think The Rock might want to show up to go head-to-head with Elias, even though it looks like they're trying to maybe put a spin on Elias, putting him on a babyface run, but maybe having The Rock there to sort of sing along with them might be that exclamation point to sell a few more albums and get Elias on the right track. But the one guy that we know that is going to be making an appearance is Brock Lesnar. Brock is going to be there with Paul Heyman to hype up the match against Roman Reigns that was put together last week with the #1 contendership match. And I'm still sitting here thinking, how is Bobby Lashley going to play into this? Because I don't think that the whole Bobby Lashley, Roman Reigns, Brock Lesnar triple threat is dead. I still think that Bobby's going to be playing into this match somehow. So obviously, somehow with the face-off, we need to see Bobby Lashley come down and get involved in this. All I know is that hopefully we don't see another rerun of the WrestleMania 31 go-home show, where basically, Roman and Brock just got in a pull-apart, just tug-of-war over the WWE Championship. We need to see some physical. We haven't seen Brock in a while. We're going to have to see if the WWE's experiment of trying to make us hate against Brock Lesnar is going to work. I can tell you that honestly, I can't wait to get that championship back on Monday Night Raw. I don't care whether if it's Roman Reigns, Bobby Lashley. I don't even care if James Ellsworth comes running down there and cashes in somehow and becomes the champion. The Monday Night Raw as a show not having a Universal Champion just does not make sense to me, and I can't wait for that title to come home. So seeing Brock on Raw, hopefully it's going to get steps closer to SummerSlam where that title comes off. But somehow I'm guessing Bobby Lashley's going to play into this, whether if it's backstage or something, and we're going to see something big on Raw.